joining us on another episode of the Fast Performance Podcast. The Fast Performance Podcast, as always, is brought to you by Kaiser, the power in human performance. We appreciate you joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Joel Rather here with the Fast Performance Podcast, running solo today in the podcast room here. And today we have a guest who is someone that now stems quite a few years of I guess, work and colleague and everything else, and someone that I asked to be on the show today, which is going to be pretty exciting. So we have Pat Nolan, Coach P-Man, as he's often referred to as. Pat is a strength and conditioning coach here in the Denver area. He is a Chicago native, got some of his origins at TC Boost out there in Chicago. Great facility run by Tommy Christian. And he has just, interestingly, our first conversations really stemmed from Pat wanting to move to the area and reaching out to me. And as someone who was early in the private sector and trying to learn how to run a facility, Pat was a tremendous asset to me being successful in some of the early years of trying to learn some of the bumps and bruises of what it requires to run a facility, and now he is the owner, operator, head honcho of Pivotal Sports Performance here in the Denver area. So, Pat, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks. Good to catch up as always.
Oh, yeah. Figured I scared everyone else out too.
Yeah, that's kind of your style. He comes in hot usually, and so we're gonna tackle a whole bunch of stuff today. Maybe we'll even talk about dogs, since we've got some common ground there.
I've got the little pusher right here so he doesn't bark.
Well, good luck with that, because I just shot some videos the other day, and I went back and I was doing some editing and realized that there was a wagging tail in the background about 5 times, and I'm like, crap, I got to reshoot all that now. So,
I had a girl on the Woodway last night, and her dad's a vet, so she wanted to hang out with the dog and everything. So the cage was open, and he walked out, and she's running on the Woodway, and he was coming like right there. He put his paws on him. Like, if he puts his paws on the backside, he's gonna find out real fast not to go near that thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of lessons in, and maybe we'll just start with the dog piece, because I tell you what, it's something else to learn how to start communicating and training a dog. And there's a lot of parallels. I talked about this in another podcast with someone. I think it was actually Brett Bartholomew. And we were talking about how there's a lot of things that you know in coaching that apply in how you start to try to approach teaching a dog something. So you're a little earlier in the stages. I've got mine is 10 months old as of yesterday. And yours is what, 3 months? 9 weeks. Yeah. So welcome aboard.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing though. Everything like I've been trying to train him, I'm like, how does this relate to me coaching an athlete, or how does my coaching to an athlete refer to how I'm going to coach this dog? So It's like, I don't know. I was thinking that to myself. I'm like, am I a weirdo thinking this way, or is other coaching people thinking that way?
Well, there's a saying, right? It's like we coach humans and we train dogs, or something like that, I think. So, and it's so true, and it's difficult, because when you think about communication and stuff like that, the dog looks at you half the time and goes, "What the heck do you want? What are you asking me to do?" And you're trying so hard to convey something to them that you either want them to do or not to do. And with humans, it's a whole other deal. But we won't digress too far there. I want to talk a little bit about your background. I got a lot of things that I want to give you the opportunity to share, because I think that when I look at the successes that you've had, and I want to kind of ping you on even from a perspective of the things that you've been through in your coaching career, and potentially because I think a lot of the work and a lot of the effort that you put in as a young coach really speaks to the success that you've had. And so I kind of want to maybe dive into that a little bit and give some insight to those watching about things that you've learned and things that I think may be helpful to others. So let's kind of maybe dig into that first. And my first question is, when you let's just say started at TC Boost, for example, talk about some of your early experiences there, talk about the things that you learned, and then how did that transition for you, like where you said, all right, I'm gonna head somewhere else, which ended up being Denver, which is where we met, and kind of like talk a little bit about did you have kind of goals in mind at that point, or were you just kind of like, I think I'm gonna go do this?
Yeah, I mean, I never sought off to had a goal in the beginning of owning my own gym or operating my own gym. That kind of transition through just years of learning from you, learning from Tommy, things like that, and the benefits of that side. But really, it was just I mean, just like every coach in this field wanted to get in this field because we weren't the best athlete, but I mean, I was lucky to train at TC Boost
Right.
as a kid. So that really stemmed my interest, and then came back and got an internship right away with them. And then that was where, like, I mean, to be honest, hopefully none of my athletes, unfortunately for you, listen to this podcast, but I didn't read a book in high school, college. Like, I was a terrible student. But then, so yeah, hopefully limited viewers.
No,
But
thousands and thousands of viewers
well,
on this
no, none of my athletes, hopefully. They don't know that about me. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I was a terrible student, didn't read anything. But then found this interest, and I mean, it was like around my birthday, and my mom asked me, "What do you want for Christmas?" I was like, "Amazon gift card." She's like, "What for? What?" I was like, "Books," and I just dove into books, and I think that's
Your
yeah,
mom was like, "What?"
but I think that's very important for every young coach. Like you hear, like, "Oh, don't get too content heavy," but I feel like at that early stage, you got to try to be a sponge and absorb everything. And then even at TC Boost, I was shadowing a little bit, but and then I stayed the whole day.
Right.
I guess where I was, but I was getting there at 6 a.m. and I was leaving at 8 p.m.
Right.
And I was just trying to be the biggest sponge. And I think that's where some coaches struggle that I've seen is they maybe have another job, and sometimes that has to be the
Sure.
situation. But if you want to get in this field, you got to go dive headfirst into it and go all
Yeah.
out and be a sponge. And I know that's how it helped me get clients working with you too. If I just was at the gym all day long
Yep.
and someone Joe Schmo walks in and you start talking and then boom, you land a client. You're not gonna land a client doing another
Yep.
job. Well, maybe, but
Yeah. No.
the chances are not as
Yeah.
high.
Well, I
But so yeah, I just wanted to be a sponge in all aspects of learning from you when you're coaching someone. I'm just sitting there learning at TC Boost, and then the chance of interacting with new clients and just learning from all different
yeah.
coaches.
Well, I think that's such a critical piece, and you hear that a lot, and yet you still see a lot of young coaches that come out with misconceptions and not fully understanding. I just did a thing. I think it was a week ago, and I talked to a bunch of students that were in an exercise science program, and it was one of those where you zoom in and you're talking with the professor, and the kids ask questions and stuff like that. And I tried to like paint that picture, and there was actually a couple other coaches on this call, and that was the fact that, as to your point, that it is so valuable to understand that if for example, I remember when we would have interns, and I'm sure that you'll recall this, where I would say, hey, if your objective is to come in, clock in, get your hours done, and the minute that that's accomplished, hit the road, the odds are that your success or your ability to continue progressing or move up or find opportunity is not probably going to be very high, because you have to be in the room, and you've got to spend that time, and you've got to be willing, like you said, to stay those extra hours. And whether that's relationship based, whether that's learning based, whether that's shadowing, and I feel like that's a really tough thing for a lot of young coaches to swallow, and it was something I recognized with you right away for sure.
Yeah,
So
I just go ahead.
no, so so moving on, we kind of Identify a little bit of that stuff. What do you think were some of the most valuable, or you kind of mentioned, all right, I identified something, right? Like I finally figured out, like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is something that intrigues me, interests me. I spent a whole bunch of time in, a couple of these facilities. And what do you think were the things that, kind of triggered that next level for you where you started to either mix and match some things, successes and failures, and started kind of where you said, all right, things are actually starting to progress for me, and or are there any specific things that you feel you identified where you went, oh, this is working, and this is something that's helping me get where I foreseeably want to be?
Yeah, I'd say kind of like two things. One was kind of interacting with more coaches then. Like I had just that TC Boost, and then I went off to Exos for their mentorship before I came out to you. So I was just building like a bigger bias. Like I had one bias and then kind of growing and learning from other coaches. But through that whole, I'd say through that transition of like my last month at TC Boost to Exos to the first couple months working with you, was I interacted with hundreds of coaches and just picking their brains, just communicating, them trying to pick my brain. I'm like, just in this field, why are you picking my brain? But it got me to grow and be courageous in terms of being able to back up any of my programs, thoughts, ideas. So that was a huge thing, I think, in terms of my growth as a coach. And then the second one, and then also through social media as well, with that interacting with other coaches. Just if I saw someone doing a video, before I would just watch and like kind of figure it out, see what it was like, try it on myself, which is my other point. But then just ask them and then be able to have a great conversation with these coaches, not like what you see on the Twitter world of our field is, where you just bash each
Right.
other. But no, have like a detailed, constructive conversation of like why are you doing that? How has it been effective to your athletes? Have you seen results? And then leading into my next point of, I mean, I was still young and I still do it today. And I tell all my athletes, I've done everything you have done.
Right.
And that's just be a guinea pig.
Yep.
And that goes into being able to demo correctly, because we both have that philosophy of you can't just be some big old coach and can't do a skip and just expect to verbal cue it. I firmly believe like you got to be able to do a bunch of movements correctly, because especially the high school setting, they're visual learners. So if you can't do it, you got to figure out a way to do it, or get one of your athletes that can demo it for you. But I just, again, when I was spending time at the gym in off hours, not training anyone, if I was shadowing, listening, trying to build a client base, I was just doing movements and just messing around. And some of the things were dumb, but you got to test it out
Right.
and test the waters and figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, I know early on for me that was a big piece of my growth, was that my mentors and the guys that I was around and at an early age, as far as my coaching career goes, was just getting in the room, and we worked out together, and we did drill work together, and we did conditioning together, and we did all these things where, as you said, there is such a large amount to be learned by knowing what it feels like, being able to do the specific drills or exercises and whatever. And
Timing was
right.
huge. Figuring out what the program in a session. You're given an hour, and you have this long list. You can't. You're like, oh shoot, we only got through half of
Right.
that.
Yeah, 100%. And so that was something for me, like for interns early on, was like, all right, one of your assignments is write a program. We'll talk about it, ins and outs, but ultimately go out and do it. How is it? Was it
Mm-hmm.
good? Was it bad? Did you like it? Were you sore? Were you not sore enough? Did you, was it too much? Yeah, like you said, did you plan it for an hour and it ended up being, an hour and 20 minutes? Well, guess what? If you're only allotted 60 minutes, then you just wasted a portion of what you had planned based on, poor organization, poor execution,
Mm-hmm.
too much or not enough or whatever. So,
And you'll learn doing that as a young coach too, when programming of see if your program is balanced as well.
Right.
Um,
For sure.
are you? Oh, you just skip all posterior chain.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I had that conversation last week with high school lacrosse. He said, "Well, what have you been up to?" And he comes and does a little bit of tune-up stuff with me, and he says, "Oh, we started lifting." I said, "Oh, okay. What'd you do?" Well, one of the assistant coaches did our lifts this week, and so I started asking questions, and they did 2 days of lifting with no lower body exercises. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess you did something." So.
Yeah.
But let's kind of take that even a step further. I know one of the things that for you, and maybe this is a kind of a two-part question because I think they run a little bit parallel, which is the social media side of things. I consider myself to be moderately below average at best, and I watch the amount that you have done, and I think that if people follow you and watch what you do, there's a right way and a wrong way, and I think and that's maybe a little bit black and white when you talk about some of this stuff. But the thing that is a common theme that I always notice with you is that it's not about you. Number one. Number two is that you are showing your athletes working. You're showing your athletes be successful. You're encouraging them to compete. You're, supporting them in things that, in their accomplishments and things like that. How do you view that as something that has been, obviously it creates buy-in. The kids love that you're paying attention. But, even more so, I think that has also manifested into, where you are today, which is that, you're now in a position where you get a lot of kids that seek you out. Do you feel that that there's a correlation there with that?
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like you hit it on the head is supporting the athletes, number one, and then the business side, building your brand of the marketing side. Because if those two didn't work, I wouldn't have an Instagram because I watch Social Dilemma and I only have 30 minutes a day now. I consider that. I went the people that go vegan after watching a meat processing plant. I watched that and I went like that on social media, and it's been awesome. It's been awesome. I love it. So like if I run out of time and I'm still trying to post videos of athletes, they're not going on that day.
Wow, this is earth-shattering. I did not know this. Maybe we got to dig a little bit further into this because I know I watched a little bit of the Social Dilemma and like it started running down the rabbit hole to a point where I was like, "Oh my gosh, do I even want to watch the rest of this? Like this is some scary stuff here."
Yeah. But no, going back to it, the social media was just kind of. I mean, I've decided from an early stage that like it's just going to be raw, uncut videos.
Yeah.
It was mainly like the best thing for me is when I go back and watch them. It's film review for me too.
Sure. Yep.
Because I'll post random ones. I don't care if they're the best ones. I don't care if they're bloopers. An athlete actually told me the other day, like at the end of the year, you should just post all the blooper videos in like a post or something.
Right.
Like make a movie of it because it'd be hilarious. But like I don't care. Like no, I don't care what gym you go to. You go to Fast, you go to Pivotal, you go anywhere. There's no perfect training going on. So I want to show them what's working. Sorry.
No,
but now I just want to show them working, and it's just a way to like. Because I'll have athletes, hey, why'd you post that? I'm like, well, a simple thing, do better.
Yeah.
And it just kind of motivates them. A little motivation goes a long way.
Well, there's a
but now it's
relationship
like,
in that too, right? Which is, they know you're not going to make them look foolish or, end up putting them in a position where like someone's going to pick on them at school or what, stuff like that.
No.
It's not insensitivity.
But yeah, that's pretty much the way it is. I didn't want to have those long, big explanations. Like my Instagram's for my kids. As coaches, if you want to follow it, go ahead. But it's not going to be like an educational content. Like, yeah, you maybe pick up some ideas from drills or things we do, but it's not really. I'm not going to have a long paragraph, lengthy explanation of why we're doing this. It's for the athletes, and then with that, I always just tag the athletes, and then this goes to the business side. Is they repost it. Like I'll go on and I'll just go to the story mode, and then I'll see like 10 of them in a row, and then they have 500,000 followers, whoever, and then all those guys are seeing that too, and they're like, oh, I want to do what Jimmy's doing.
Right.
And then they reach out through social media or just through website, business, whatever, however they reach out, or they ask their friend, and the friend says, hey, can I bring him? He saw the video and wants to do it. And that just helped build a larger client base of another way to reach out. And the kids, it's instant gratification of they worked out and then they see, I call it the Sports Center top 10 of training the day. Like,
Right.
what video is going to be posted? Because I'll get heat from some athletes. Hey, you didn't post my video. I'm like, hey, you didn't make the cut today. It's pure random too. Like I'll just go in, like post a couple. Like I'm not like, oh, this guy hasn't been on for 2 weeks. It's time for him. It's just like,
So you don't have a script going for this, is what you're saying. This is
no, it's just like I like these 5 videos.
Coach P Man.
Yeah, but like again, me going back and watching these videos, I'm scrolling through. I'm like, oh, like this. Oh, what? And you see maybe an error that I didn't catch while coaching the athlete, and then I could go back the next session.
Right. So, the flip side of that, because I know you and I have had this discussion, which is, we've went in these circles where we talk about this subject, which is you see a lot of the obvious pieces, and you alluded to it, which is, the guy who's, the keyboard warrior goes, hey, man, like, you watch this guy, like, do this drill, and you posted that, like, how could you possibly do that? And you and I have had that conversation multiple times, and we've had this discussion. I think that we both kind of agree, which is it doesn't discount the fact, and this is me speaking, and you can chime in, after I kind of make my point, which is it doesn't discount the fact that you don't understand it. It doesn't discount the fact that you don't value it, and it definitely doesn't discount the fact that the athlete maybe isn't doing it perfectly. It's a progress. It's a progression. It's you working with the kid, and it's contextual based all the time. And the guy that comes out to you and says, hey, man, like, how could you possibly do that? And I always say, well, maybe you should have seen that kid a week ago. Like, you don't know how much progress that was. Or even more so is the previous comment that you made. Like, you're supporting the kids. You're trying to encourage them to get better. Talk a little bit about that. Like, have you seen any of that on your end where guys go like, holy crap, man, like that video sucked. Like, did you see that kid's angle and this and that? Like, what's your, I know like you don't have a lot of tolerance for that, but like, has that been something that you've dealt with because of how you approach that?
Yeah. And no, I have definitely seen that from coaches that I don't even know.
Of course.
But it's just like you said, it's you didn't see him a week ago. You don't know the context behind that session, or you don't even know what that kid's going through.
Right.
Maybe that kid just needed to see himself and like broadcast it to all the other kids training in that group or something like that because he's having a tough time, and now he's the star of the show because he's highlighted in that thing. And that right there is building performance because his courage has just gone up. He's more confident, things like that. And that's our job, is to increase performance.
Right.
It's not always sets and reps. It's the mental side too.
For sure. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of the perspectives that you and I have when it comes to some of these things are very similar. And that is, in a lot of regards, obviously watching you and continue to, follow what you do is to some level. I always say like, I think for me, being an old guy, you're a lot younger than me. We'll just say that. It's difficult. Like,
I'm old now.
Yeah, you are getting up there. That's for sure. Talk a little bit about that, because I think that there's also a portion of that where I don't know if it's generational, and I don't want to get into that stuff, whatsoever. But for me, I have a hard time. Like, talk to, about that from your perspective, which is just capturing that without losing sight of what your mission is, which is coaching, improvement, technical work, whatever that might be, is maintaining the level of consistency, which I think is a big part, and you do a really good job with that. But at the same time, not being so like, oh, I got to, do this and this and this and this. And that's my downfall, which is I just don't think in those terms. Like, how does that, is that something where for you, it's now just kind of second nature? Like, oh, I'm just going to always capture these things? Or is it, an effort-based thing where like I have to do, at least 5 videos a day where I, and I may not use them all, as you said, but talk a little bit about that, because that's something I struggle with, where I watch kids that do something, I go, I should have videoed that. That would have been a good opportunity. And it's gone now.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, I have no intention of what video is going on or a list of I have to take 5 videos. I mean, there's days when I might have 20 videos on that story. There's days where it's one and it's probably something dumb. But I have no intention of that. I go back. It's not on. I'm never on the app during. It's always through just the camera, and I just started that as a young intern of like my coaching eye not being sharp. Tommy was the one to film it, and watch it in slow motion and everything, and that just always stayed with me. I like filming, and then that goes into coaching in the session of I can go back, slow motion, watch, and show the athletes, because again, going back to their visual learners, them seeing that, and then I just end up having videos on my phone. I mean, I can show you. I must have won the lottery ticket for iPhone, because I don't pay for like any extra storage, but I have. Let's see what I have today. Ruining my screen time right now, by the way. Where is it? Oh, here, all photos. I have 14,204 videos and 8,200 photos.
What?
The photos are all just screenshots too, because I like screenshot different positions, and it's all just turf. If you look through, it's just you see turf in the background. So yeah, I don't know how my phone does that.
How is that possible?
But I'll just film a video. What?
How is that possible? My phone's like,
I don't know.
6 months old and it's full.
My old phone had that problem, but this one, lottery ticket.
So. Holy cow.
But yeah, no. So going back to that point, getting off topic, but I just film, and sometimes I don't. The days where I don't have a lot of videos to post, I'm not like scrambling. I gotta post these last 3 sessions. Like, it's just, again, going back in the coaching session. There's days where you're just fully coaching zone, where like, and you don't really need to see the video, film it to show the athletes. You're just coaching and going. I'm not like, oh, this one has to be filmed. Like, there's no thought in that. It's just, at the end of the day, it's my film review. For my last session, I sit down here and I watch my phone, and then I'll go on Instagram and post a couple.
Yeah.
And that's the process. There's no science behind it.
I was looking for like something really like, I got this plan, and this is what I do on Monday, and then I schedule this out. Not so much.
Oh no, that's my book coming out next month.
You got a book coming out next month?
No.
So to take that a step further, I know that one of the things that again, you've always done a really good job with, and some of it still stays in the same vein, which is reaching out to other coaches. And I know that you've developed a lot of, really good relationships. I know Jeremy Boone being one of those, and amongst a few others, where, you just reached out and said, hey man, I'm going to pick your brain or make contact or what have you. Talk about that, because I think, especially for young coaches, this is something where, again, as I talked to that class last week, I said, develop your network. And how has that been something that has been a huge asset for you, not only from, maybe a progression standpoint of, opportunities and what have you, but more importantly, like, how has that been something for you where it's either created more insight for you or what have you, that came or stemmed from those types of efforts?
Yeah, it really started just going to your initial conferences and everything, and you soon learn that the hallway chats are the best ones, and that's where you learn the
Right.
most. And then you're like, oh, I'm skipping that lecture to continue to talk to this guy and this group or whatever in the hallway, because those have been where you build those connections and lifelong friends, coaches, or whatever, and then you see them down the road at another conference, things like that, and you catch up and you become closer through social media is a helpful thing. That's the first thing I think that helped me is just starting to talk to coaches and be open and be willing to approach this guy that I've been seeing him on social media, read his book, things like that. Just you got to go up and talk to them. Like they're coaches just like
Right.
us. Well, like me, you're
right.
up there. But yeah, and then another thing is like if I have a wedding in Atlanta, I'm going out there a couple hours early. I'm going to try to see a coach. Like I remember going to Chip Smith's place, using your contacts
Right.
and hanging out, meeting new people. And so if I'm going anywhere, whether it's business wise or just personal, I'm seeking out to see if there's a coach in the area. If I know somebody that knows someone, so like yeah, going on pro days or whatever, you go meet with their strength staffs at that university. Just be open, not like coming in with like, hey, I'm this person. I'm gonna show you how to run your gym or whatever. No, I just want to go hang out with you, talk shop, and see what you are doing, and hopefully pick up something or
Right.
two, and then build that connection as well.
Yeah, no, that's huge, and like you said, it creates a broader span within your network. It creates opportunities where you have more people to resource. And like you said, the fraternity within coaching is big. Obviously, there's good and bad within it with how people either operate or don't operate, and the ownerships and egos and some of those things. And to me, I've always tried to just find a way where those that I either associate with, talk with, or have either reached out to, much like yourself, is that they're just opportunities where there's not an ulterior motive for me to take something from them or leech something off of them or have them lead me into something like, oh well, if I go meet this guy, maybe he'll introduce me to this guy. Most of that stuff is organic, and I think if you go into it with the right intentions, there's very few times where I've met someone and walked away and went, yeah, well, that was a waste of time. And
Yeah.
so, and I think that's a positive. But let's talk a little bit now. I think one of the things that has also been really pretty awesome is I can recall been however many years ago now when we were back at Big Bear and you began to work with Ponderosa High School. And within that became a little bit of rope was given where like, yeah, we'll give this guy a shot and see what happened. And now you fast forward and virtually you have that program almost school wide. And talk about how the things that you've done there have yielded the success, and some of them are the things we've already talked about, but more importantly is how you capitalized on that opportunity to grow it into something bigger. Because I think this is something, especially in the private sector, or even if you're, say a young coach who gets a high school job or a college job, and you're like, you get these two teams, and your objective is, I want bigger buy-in. And I think that's something that you've done a really good job with. How have you developed that buy-in to get to where that program is today? And now you have multiples. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I really started off. I mean, I think my first session, I just reached out to the football coach, and if you're in the private side, reaching out to the football coach is usually the best bet because they're the ones mostly involved. You're not going to land a high school job going for the swim coach. Usually, it might be, hey, but just common thing. Basketball, football are kind of the big ones. But mainly football, and I reached out to that coach. I reached out to 20 different coaches too, and some said no. Some said we got someone. Some said, yeah, come talk or whatever, and those folded
Wait a minute, you
through.
didn't quit when
But then,
5 guys told you no?
no, I should have,
Yeah.
huh?
That's I just
Um,
like I kind of want to stop you there because I think that's a huge part of this business, and a lot of people don't understand that is, and you just hit it, is you have got to be willing to go out and hear no, and that's a perfect example, you know. And what ended up happening is what you're about to say is here's my opportunity. Now I can try and move forward with it. But that's critical because you know I think that a lot of people that fail in this business, especially in this type of setting, it's because oh well, there's you know everybody just says no.
no, I mean, I even reached out, continuing that point, the ones that said no, I reached out the next season.
Right.
Um, and guess what? Some of them said no, and I actually landed another one after they said no the first time. So, I mean, I think that's huge in the sales world of if we're in that field, like where you just keep going. And I mean, we are in the sales world. But yeah, so going back to the one high school, Ponderosa, I landed the football team. He's like, yeah, you can work out. I'll have 15 kids tomorrow morning at the turf. And I mean, I made it the best session. I treat every session of like they are the best athletes I'm training in the world. And that's how I go into whether it's a youth group or having my NFL guys here. It's they are that during that moment they are the best athletes I will ever train. And I just created an environment and gave them an experience that they enjoyed and everything. And they went back to their coach and said they wanted more. I mean, in that beginning too, you kind of do some fun drills, things like that, and then to get that buy-in, and then we break it back down. Like you're not going to see me go over detailed positions of acceleration and everything. No, we're going to get the noodles out and have fun, and again, it's a chance for you to analyze these athletes in a chaotic situation as well. So next time you can come back with a little more detailed drills, technique wise, things like that. I think is a huge one in terms of not just the high school, but any athlete you're working client in the private side to get that buy-in. And then, yeah, the football team trickled into the whole summer then, training them, and they had a successful year. And then the next year, lacrosse came reaching out, and then it's got to where I'm training the Palms at some points 4 times a week.
Right.
So it's spread from football to Palms and everything in between. And then even getting involved into the school as you can see that poster above there is the athletic council, and I run the leadership group for all sports at the high school now. So I have like 2 representatives from every sport, and we meet once a month. And we go over leadership concepts, which is another huge passion of mine as well. But that's kind of from just initial contact to a coach to now knowing history teachers in the building, things like that as you interact with all different people as you're constantly going in and out of the building.
Right. Well, and I think that some of the other things that I've seen that you started kind of instilling, which was in the summer program, you know, you took that football team, and as you built the buy-in, you started your summer program where you began that kind of competitive nature, and you built out teams, and you put leaders, as you said, from each of those groups, and started making it, as you mentioned earlier, a lot less about sets and reps, and a lot more about developing kids to achieve better things, and for them to see the opportunity, create an environment where if you weren't in that group and you're not part of that group, you started to create a buzz because the kids are enjoying it, the kids are having fun, the kids are competing, and you're doing it in a manner where they want to be part of it, and those that aren't are now recognizing and going, well, I want to do that. And it's manifested because, as you said, it's had a higher purpose than just saying run to here and run to there and do it 10 times, or lift weights and you're just going to get stronger and listen to what I tell you. It's putting some of that back on the athletes and saying, all right, you guys this thing is about you, and this thing is going to be about how you guys pull this thing together. I'm going to give you the resources, but ultimately it's not going to be you in front yanking everybody like, come on, I'll show you. And I think that's something that it has progressed into the success that you've seen there. And now you have a few other schools, I know, a couple other football programs that have reached out to you, and the replication of that. Do you think that over the years you've been able to kind of fine tune some of that stuff? Like, what are some of maybe the not so fun lessons you've learned over that where you're like, ooh, that one didn't work at all?
Some of the, I mean, actually, yeah, just kind of the competitive games. If I'm doing something at Ponderosa, which we've done this game and we've created that buy-in or whatever, and like every kid loves it and they can't wait to do it again, you bring it over to another school, then you implement it day one.
Right.
Because it's like the same week and you're trying to go with the flow in terms of helping you program and everything. Oh, we'll do this game over at this high school. Yeah, and it's their first time and and it's year one working with them too, so you haven't built that competitive nature or anything, and it's like, oh, this is a dud. Man, I'm like, why don't you guys like this game? This game's a blast over at the other high school. So you had to learn that you got to build up. You can't just jump thing to thing. You have to build that whole culture environment in the high school settings, because the coach is reaching out to you because they don't have that environment in terms of sports performance, strength and conditioning, where kids are half-assing their sets and reps, things like that, where if you play a competitive game, they're going to do the same thing. So that's why they're reaching out to you. So you got to build that before you get into all that fun.
Right. Yeah. I think you hit that like perfectly, which is there has to be a level of establishing some of those things to have it work, and that it's going to take some time to instill some of that, like you said, competitiveness for the buy-in to happen. Maybe even some of the technical and tactical pieces of them being able to move better in order for those to potentially be successful. And I think that's a big part of the process, which is just because it was fun over here doesn't mean you can just plug and play it over there and it's automatically going to work, because those kids are at a different place. They're maybe at a different level. And, the amount of time that they've spent with you has built up to the success of that said drill or day or workout or whatever, that it doesn't mean that it automatically will replicate itself in another setting. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So thinking about business side, because I think that's something where now here you are, you used to work with me and work in a couple other settings, right? And ultimately, I remember the day that you and I sat down and you said, well, I think I'm going to go do my own thing. And obviously, I could have been a guy who was like, well, go screw yourself, have fun. And you know me better than that, which is that, I never had that intention, especially because it didn't come from a place of like, oh, I'll go show you. It was, I have done all these things that we've talked about already and started to build some traction in the things that I want. And I think it's a natural progression, which is that you reach a point where you go, this is how I want to do things. And it doesn't mean that they didn't align with the way we do things. And I've even said it multiple times in our facility. I go, man, it'd be great if Pat was still here. And I'd love it if you were still here. But at the same time, I look at it and go, the things that you're doing were a natural progression for you to be in the spot that you are now. And there's no ill will there or whatever. But what are the things early on? And of course, we don't want to talk about COVID, but the timing is outstanding to be a new business owner. But what are the things that you've learned early on so far as being your own, your own boss, so to speak, and running your own facility that have been either eye-opening or big learning experiences thus far from that side of the fence? Because I know that for me, there were so many things when I walked in, and all of a sudden it was like, huh. So I got to do all this crap, and now it's like there's a lot more than sets and reps that goes on your plate than
Oh
before.
yeah.
So talk a little bit about some of that, and maybe the things that have been good and bad. It doesn't all have to be like, oh man, this sucked, but I'm doing it anyway.
No, I mean, I don't think it sucks. I find like getting intrigued by it and learning it. It's like a new challenge that we all are always craving new challenges. And it's my new challenge. I mean, some nights it sucks when I'm crunching numbers and I'm no math genius. Um, and but it's the tracking, the client relationship of following up again. I mean, going back to our other thing, like it's a lot harder when you get 15 emails and then you only can check these emails at 11 o'clock at night, and you're like, do I send these emails out now? And then you like forget the next day or whatever. And then just calling back, like I'm right now, I'm the front desk, the secretary, the accountant, things like that. Like you're wearing a lot of hats. And I'm learning now, like, I mean, I now have an accountant, I have a bookkeeper, I have an online software that tracks all that stuff, and it's cut 3 hours out of my day each day to give back to my time. Because as a business side, I mean, I've done a lot of learning from you, learning from other coaches, reaching out to other business owners and just hearing what they do, what they don't recommend, what they've learned, things like that. That's just another thing I've been doing now. Instead of asking about philosophies and training, it's business philosophies. And it's do what you do well and help get others to help you do the other things, because I am not going to do my taxes. IRS will probably be already walking in right now.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
And how many hours would that take for me to do it correctly and everything? That's going to take time away from programming. That might mean I have to cancel a session or something. And what I love and what I'm good at is coaching. And that's what I want to maintain to do even as a business owner.
Yeah. And I think that's difficult.
Like I need to be out on the floor.
Yeah. That's the hard part, is finding that balance as a business owner and understanding that the reason that you are a business owner is the underlying part of that is your passion to coach and do the things that you've spent as much time as you have to get to that point. And it's something that I've talked about numerous times, and whether it's casual conversations or podcasts or whatever, talking to young coaches, is if I could go back and do it again, one of the biggest things that I really wasn't part of my curriculum, if you will, as far as school goes, is that I would encourage young coaches, if you have any desire to be in a position like you or I or anybody else that's in this field in the private sector, is get a business minor. Because guess what? It is going to pay itself off in spades later on.
100%.
When
100%.
I walked into being in this position, and really, like you said, it's the marketing, it's the accounting, it's the managing communication, it's staff, it's scheduling, it's all these other things, and you're like, I just want to go out there and do my thing. And guess what? In order to do that, you got to be good at this too, or at least you're going to have to figure out either how to get to a point where you have resources and people that can help you, systems in place and what have you, and you start moving from this is what I do every day to I better learn to do this real quick, or that's never going to happen. And that's tough. And I mean, those have been some of my own, like, I feel like this is like it's like a bonding session here. We talk about like, yeah, man, it was rough. The struggle's real.
But no, I agree with that. And I actually told one of my college athletes who wants to get in this field, and he's like, yeah, you can see myself owning a gym. He's like, but I really want to do business too. I was like, get the business degree and then minor in exercise science if you can, or you study that on the side because you could still get your certifications and everything. Just because, I mean, yeah, it helps getting an exercise science degree, but you can still get in this field without it. And he's like, really? Like, I thought you were going to say do the exercise science. And I'm like, no. My position now, get that business degree and then that'll help you. I mean, the books now next to me are business books. Like, I don't have like a strength and conditioning like article or anything around near me right now. It's
I know people go like, oh, what's the last thing that you've read or what's the last thing that you've learned? And I'm like, well, I've taken 2 courses on search engine optimization and how to better grow your platform. How do you learn how to, monetize a YouTube page or all this other stuff? And it's like, it has zero to do with training. And it's not that I still don't, dig myself into that.
Oh yeah, no.
I still pay attention to a lot of those things. I love to listen to, listen and watch what a lot of other coaches do. I'm constantly saving things here and there, and like you said, those parking lot conversations where you gain so much insight and perspective from what other coaches do and things that you see. And I think that's really an awesome part of what what our business is really about. And there's a lot of ways to get things done. And I think you and I both kind of lived in similar kind of mindsets, which is there's not one way to do things in this business, and there's a lot to be gained through relationships and watching and learning from others.
For sure.
So what's we're getting down. What are we at? About 50 minutes here. What's next? Like now you're in a position where you're kind of starting to get things moving. You're own your own business. You've kind of mastered some of the, we'll call them systems, even though whatever successes you've had or through your trial and error. Like, what's the target for you? Is it to have 20 coaches on your staff? Is it to be into a 20,000 square foot facility? Like, where's the next step in the coach P-Man progression?
Really just continue to grow Pivotal in multiple facets. I mean, my goal for here is just kind of become the rock star of this community of sports performance. Of like, you have to come here, and not just with me. Like, I have a couple other coaches joining soon. One very well who's who's coaching and has actually covered for me now, so I didn't have to shut down the gym. Jaleel, he's diving in now.
Good.
My man. As he's one that just said, hey, I want to do what you do, and giving him. I mean, he's been with us for 6 years. He knows every exercise. Yeah. Now it's learning the why for him. So it's kind of like a different internship for him, where I trust him enough where he can go over a workout. And Coach Lil, he's learned cues from us. So that's an exciting journey. And then bringing on another couple coaches in the future as well, and just kind of grow that. And again, like you were with me, you're supportive, and I don't expect all these coaches to stay with me for eternity until we're done. But like I've said to these other coaches that I've talked to, is like, I want to become, whether it is you want to stay here and build your whole client. I said, you can be the rock star of this town. You can be the rock star of this sport, whatever, in this environment, be the rock star of that, or build it. It's a platform for you. If you want to go into the professional realm, then I will do everything we can to help you build that resume, to get you build connections that I may have, things like that, to get you to the next level. Like, I want to just help not only my athletes, but the coaches grow and achieve their goals as well. That's just kind of, we want to help our athletes achieve. Why can't we help our coaches achieve? Right. And I mean, you did that for me, so you're a huge mentor in that. Like you said, you're like, nope. All right, see ya. We talk all the time. I've asked you things. Hey, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? Right. Like, I want to do that. I mean, I didn't open a gym next door to you. Maybe it would have been a little different, and hopefully it's the same for you
for sure, obviously.
Yeah. But yeah, no, kind of the thing with Pivotal. I don't have plans of franchising. I don't like that idea because I think the product kind of diminishes. I want to. I mean, I'm here for another 2 years, and if we're busting at the seams, which I hope for, then I have to move out early. That's and I have the funding. That's great. If we live out the lease and then stay, whatever. Like I love this place. It's kind of going on the flow. There's no like goals in terms of like deadlines, things like that. Like I got to hit this number to
Right.
move out of this place. Like you got to go just build it up as natural as it can and
Yeah.
adjust on the fly in terms of, all right, it is unsafe. We can't have this many people or we're losing out on
Right.
people because we have to say no to
Yeah.
them. So there's those things that you got to learn. But right now it's working great. Just having kids come in throughout the day, things like that. So just continue to build that client base. And really it's still just getting our name out there because we're only still a couple months old out here in Parker. So
Yeah. Well, I think that it's definitely number one. It's been fun to see how. I can remember the first day that I met you, and you fast forward that now to today, and I'm sure you can probably recall that. And you and I've had a lot of varying levels of conversations, personal, professional, from a coaching standpoint to goal setting and you've helped me a ton as far as getting to where we sit today, and it's been fun to watch and be a part of some of that, and I take very little credit in your success based on how hard
yeah, we're gonna do that.
how hard that you've worked, and I've been able to just sit back and any place where there's an opportunity for me to either give input or whatever, I've taken it. But at the same time, everything that you've done in terms of the growth and the effort and the hours that you've put in are starting to show based on the successes that you're having, which is awesome. And we'll look forward to continue doing that. One of the things that we like to do is we like to try and finish our podcast with the Fast Five, and what this includes is F words that are all clean, that are going to be questions that may have nothing to do with coaching whatsoever, but just kind of throw them at you and see what's going on. So first question is, first car. What was the first car that you owned?
A 97 Suburban. It was a tank.
Ooh.
42-gallon tank.
Gross.
Someone totaled their car, didn't damage my car.
A grocer getter. I like it.
Oh yeah. Fit 20 people in there one
Right.
time.
Okay.
Don't tell my
Yeah,
mom.
right. I was gonna say I don't want to ask some of the other questions that came to my head as far as like the things that you can do with a Suburban as an adolescent kid. So second question is let's go favorite food. What's Pat's
Ice cream.
Huh?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Oh, that's right. I knew that.
Yeah.
You're such an ice cream guy.
Yeah, I've never gotten full from ice cream. Still to this day.
Well, okay. What flavor? That's an F word too.
Well, mint's my favorite, mint chocolate chip. But really, if it's ice cream and it's not like coffee flavored, it's ice cream to me. And real ice cream, none of this like Halo or any
Yeah,
of
you're
that.
not going for the rice cream or the any
No.
of those that
One of my goals for me training still is I train so I can eat ice cream. You gotta have your goals.
All right. Next question is funniest athlete moment, because we talked a little bit about bloopers, or it could be multiple. Like and you and I have had some hilarious moments.
You know my answer already for
Go
this
ahead.
one. Diesel. Daryl Williams, when he came out again and trained, and with Jaleel, going back to Jaleel. And Jaleel was training with us for 8 months straight, and he was a freaking monster. And then Diesel came out and joined him, and he just goes, his arms are having babies. doing like a row, and it was just, I mean, if you know Diesel or ever heard of him, it's just
Oh my gosh.
those are the funniest moments to begin with. But when he went on that rant, I think there was there's you, me, there's 3 other
Uh,
coaches, there's a couple other athletes there, and every single buddy was in
yeah.
tears. And Diesel is still rambling
Yeah.
on.
I tell you, we that year we had
And how that was filmed is beyond
yeah,
me.
we had such an awesome group. I mean that group of guys in that combine class, led by Diesel, who played at Western Kentucky, moved on and was fortunate enough he was on 2 or 3 different NFL teams. Was right on. He was just kind of like that bubble guy that was on a roster and kind of up and down and gets traded a few times. And I tell you what, man, like that guy, if you were in the room when we were training, it was going to be a good day, no matter what. And he was.
If you need a t-shirt slogan, he's good for you.
Yeah, 100%. So that's funny. Yeah, I'll never forget that. All right, and this is probably something too where I probably know this answer, but fastest athlete. And this could create some.
Oh, there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
There's 2 of them. And one of them's with me right now. So when are you publishing this
Yeah,
video?
right?
But no, I guess they're tied. But Roddy Randall from Lamar, who's now in the CFL, and then Kenny Walker, who's in the CFL from UCLA. Both ran 4.28s,
Yep.
40s. I'd say Rodney was better acceleration wise, and Kenny was better top
Yep,
speed.
for sure.
So put those 2 together. I don't know what time
We
we
need 2
have.
more, and we got a world class 4x1.
Yeah. But yeah, they were both real fun to watch.
Yeah, most definitely.
Or actually, I mean, the most impressive speed, though,
I know what you're gonna say.
John,
Yeah,
Big
Big
John.
John.
I mean, 350 pounds running 4.9. I think that's more impressive than those 2 180 pounders soaking wet running
Guys that
4.28s.
you expect to be fast, but achieve an elite level of fast, right? And I think that's the big difference there. But 100%, like you start having that conversation, and I always revert to that. And Big John was he in the same group as those guys?
That's Kenny.
Yeah. And Big John came to us. He was 360 pounds when he came in. He was 340 when he left. And this dude put down one of the most impressive 40-yard dashes to this day that I still have ever seen. And to watch
coaching clinic in terms of his transitions.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely amazing. Runs a 4.9 at his pro day, and we looked at each other and went, "Oh my gosh, did he really just do that?" And there was a point in that too where we watched the video where you could see the coaches that were standing there that were like, "Holy cow, did you see that?" Like, that was pretty cool. Yeah. So.
I remember day 1 working with him, where his during the warm up, a skip, he's dragging his feet because he's so heavy and sluggish.
Yeah.
So that transition of his progression was awesome to watch.
Most definitely. So, all right. Well, I don't know if that was 5 or not, but we'll call it good there. And it's always good to catch up. I mean, it's fun that we still maintain connection offline, and obviously appreciate your time. I know how busy that you've maintained, especially through the craziness of all this stuff in an odd way. It hasn't been all that bad for a lot of us small business owners with the freedom that some of our young kids have based on really not being in class every day. And so we appreciate your time. It's good to catch up, good to hear all the things that you're doing. And for anybody that wants to check out Pat and see the things that he's doing, you can find him pretty simple. Go to Coach P Man on any social media outlets, and he has a ton of good stuff that he puts out there. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they reach Pat?
My number is 224-612-0395. Yeah. So I actually, so Matt Shadid put his number out there, and I texted him. I reached out to him.
Really?
So I heard him on a podcast. He gave his number. He's like, I feel free to give my number because whatever. So there's my number.
Say it again.
Coach_man is my Instagram, Twitter. Email just coach.patricknolan@gmail.com. But yeah, so if my phone starts blowing up, it's all right.
All right. Well,
but look what I got here.
Hey, the man, the myth, the legend. Joel.
Big
What's
dog.
up, man?
How are you, brother? Good to see you.
I'm good, man. You too, man. Hope all is well.
Yeah,
man.
I heard you are going to be joining Mr. Pat soon.
Yeah, man. Start this coaching career, man. You guys got me, motivated to do it.
I love it, man.
Definitely gonna be looking to you for advice as well, man. So
boy, I tell you what, that's maybe a lot to live up to. You're in good hands with Pat. I'll tell you that.
You just quoted on the podcast.
Oh, is this live?
Yeah, this is live.
It's all good. You're the spoiler. Well, the spoiler alert.
Hey, man.
So,
that's the preview.
Yeah. So no, it's. I was gonna tell Pat to tell you hi, but it's good to do it in the real. So good things.
Yeah,
good things from you guys. Appreciate your time. All the best. I'm still gonna. One of these days, I actually almost had enough time where I thought about texting you and saying, like, dude, I'm just going to drive down there and we'll do it at your place because I still got to come down and see you. But we'll do that soon. And, wish you guys all the best. And we'll obviously keep in touch. So thank you guys for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed today's.
Thank you guys.
Yep.
Say everyone have hello.
Will do. So signing off until next time. Thanks for joining us today. And hope all is well. And on to the next.